Good evening. Welcome to the August 7th, 2019 meeting of the Conservation Commission. If we can all stand and salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first item is roll call. Commissioner Heather Legere.
Here.
Commissioner David Etoff. Here. Commissioner Toby Cassidy. Here. And absent tonight is Commissioner Joe Laval. And I also absent tonight is Ann Raponi is absent. Ann has been sick the last month or so. She was actually in the hospital, but she's doing better now. She's home and getting stronger every day, so we wish her well, and hopefully we'll see her next month. Can I have approval of the minutes for May 1st and June 5th, 2019 meetings? So I have a motion for
I'll make a motion.
Toby makes a motion. Do I have a second? Seconded by Heather Legere. All right, first item on the agenda is Mass DEP file 0610730-646 Ocean Avenue. BC Boston Development construction of a 5-story mixed-use residential commercial over 2 levels of parking. Can I have your name and address for the records, please? Turn on the microphone.
That button?
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm not that technologically oriented. I'm Victoria Fletcher with Mylone and McBroom. I'll be introducing the project, but then turning the presentation over to a colleague who knows much more about it than I do. Should I have everybody introduce themselves? Or
yeah, have everyone introduce themselves now, and then we'll start.
Tom Daly, also with Mylone Broom. Our offices are in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Good evening, guys and ladies. My name is Mark Forlenza. I'm a partner with the development group.
Thank you. All right, so whoever wants to start, let's give a description of what we're doing.
Sure. Well, as I met a couple of you out at the site this past Saturday, and I live closest to the site. I know the area pretty well.
They threw you to the wolves is what they did on Saturday.
No, it's not the wolves. I love this area. So we're here this evening regarding a parcel at 646 Ocean Avenue, which is currently a parking lot. And there's been part of a master plan development along Ocean Avenue. Several other buildings have been built, but this is the last remaining sort of hole in the donut, if you will. The entire property is currently paved. It's also important to your jurisdiction, all entirely within the land subject to coastal storm flowage. So that's a state resource area that has no performance standards, but nonetheless, it's important that you understand the project and can ask questions about drainage and so forth. But Tom will go into more detail on those sorts of details and any other questions that you have about the project. So with that, I'll just turn it over to Tom. Oh.
Mark will actually go first. He's going to. I think it's useful to this commission to understand kind of the scope of the project, and then Perfect. I'll get into the site and the drainage.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Good evening again. Mark Forlenza with the developer, one of the partners with the developer. Thank you for hearing our application here tonight. It's myself, and you've met Tom, and who will be going through the stormwater calculations. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the project, the units, what the count is, some of the amenity space, and that sort of thing. The first thing I'd like to say is, as you know, this is what we're proposing for the site is a luxury apartment home community of 209 apartment homes, the majority of which, 80% of which, are studios and 1-bedrooms. There's 106 studios, and 41 2-bedrooms, and the balance are 1-bedroom apartments. This building is a 5-story building over 2 stories of structured parking. The parking, like you see on the beach right now, is all above grade for a variety of reasons. Above the 2 stories of structured parking are 5 stories of wood frame residential apartments, sort of situated in what I would call a sort of a flat A, in which there's an interior corridor, there's an interior open space, and then which opens out into a pool. And as we go through these quick pictures, you can see what I'm talking about. The building, as you can see, is a very attractive building. On the front is a U-shaped building, and on the sides are 3 stories, which abuts our neighbor, given the appropriate setbacks. The building itself, as I said, this is a typical floor plan. This is probably the 3rd floor, but the building is sort of a flat A with the pool and amenities here in the front with views of the ocean, and then this sort of interior corridor. It's not corridor, but this interior open space, which people will be able to pass, through the passive, recreation inside, through, leasing off through an amenity area such as the workout room and through the pool. So this whole space is sort of the central of our community. In addition, on the ground floor, we have retail and a restaurant. There's 4,000 feet of retail and approximately an 80-seat restaurant, sort of to enlighten and invigorate, the streetscape, like a lot of people are doing now with the newer developments. Just to speak specifically about, our target market, the luxury apartment market is for people that it's a renter of choice, portion of the rental market. It's people who can afford to buy a home but choose to rent for, lifestyle reasons. And typically what you've seen, and I'm sure other people have told you this, typically what you've seen in these type of communities are empty nesters, young adults, millennials, and then people in transition, whether they're just coming out of college, getting divorced, some lifestyle change. So those are typically the 3 segments that we see in these communities. This community itself is specifically targeted to millennials. And what you'll see in the plans, and I have handouts for you, which you can take home, I'll hand out after the brief presentation. What you see in our plans is the units are quite a bit smaller than the average on the street. So the studios average anywhere from 400 square feet to 600 square feet, the 1 bedroom slightly larger, and the 2 bedrooms, at most 1,100 square feet. So in general, the average square feet of each apartment home is less than 700 feet, which is a little bit different than what's the competitive buildings are on right now. So that's what we think our niche is with this product. And the amenities will be tailored, specifically for that group. That's why we have a lot of open space. That's why we have a lot of community space. That's why we'll have, an inside, bar area or a wine room, all those things that kind of attract that sort of age-targeted group. And so that's about it for sort of the description of the project. If you have any questions on the retail, I know there were some questions that you guys had over the weekend.
Do you have anybody in mind that's interested in the restaurant or anything yet, or hasn't even gone that far yet?
I don't think we're going to have any problem attracting a restaurant.
Yeah, I'm sure you won't either. Just wondering, just curious.
Yeah, this retail is only 8,000 square feet out of approximately 150,000 square feet. It's such a small component of the overall project size that we will take the right tenant for our mix, because we don't consider sort of the street retail sort of a money-making. It's sort of an amenity to the building. So we will get the right restaurant that caters to the right demographic in our building, and that's how we'll also do the retail. We'll probably do something like a general store on the other 4,000 feet of retail, something like that. But that's not even 100% yet.
And that's for sure. You're definitely going
That's for sure.
to have a retail component
Absolutely.
to this.
I know there were some other questions on Saturday about the general overall.
Well, there were a lot of questions about parking. You're planning on 1 spot per studio, I was trying to look at some of the numbers, but I was a little bit confused. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. I think was there a total of 242 parking spaces? I think there's a total of 242 parking spaces, which comes out to be 1.1 something per dwelling unit. Around that. I might even have it here. Yeah. Yeah, so we looked at this pretty thoroughly, just to take a step back. So what we did prior to going in front of the site plan review is we did a parking study at the building next door to see what their utilization was. So we went on a Sunday night. Tom and a traffic engineer went on a Sunday night, which is when the utilization of the parking is at its most. And we took the count of the cars on a variety of different times on Sunday. And what we found with the utilization at the Vanguard, it was about 0.86 per unit. There was a lot of open spaces. And we've heard feedback that they're open spaces because they're charging for spaces and they charge on the street. And so we've looked. We didn't know that when we did the study, but we saw a utilization rate of about 0.86. So we're proposing 1.1 something per unit, based upon those studies and based upon a variety of other things. So we met with the police chief, before we submitted to the site plan, probably 6 months ago, and we got his blessing on the parking, because he's the one that kind of has to deal with some of these parking problems. And then we took it back to the site plan review. So we've looked at it, and the last comment will be we're bundling the spaces with the apartments.
So there's no extra charge for parking?
So there's no. What we'll do, whatever we charge for the parking will be in the rent. It won't be broken apart where someone can't choose to not take the space, is what some of the questions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was one of my questions.
And how would you accommodate people who are using the restaurant? So you're saying you're planning on most of the restaurant patrons being from the development, but...
Mostly street traffic, yes. It'll be mostly from the development and whatever other building will go into that restaurant. That's correct.
And
but that's in our count.
Is on the street then? Anyone coming in to use the restaurant is now parking on the street?
Well, most of it will be walk-up parking.
Walk-up.
Any other questions about the project before we get to the stormwater guy and torture him?
which apparently you wanted on Saturday. Sorry.
No worries. Any other? No, if we can move on to the next, to Tom will be good.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take that long.
No, that's all right. I actually was going to do one housekeeping thing. I need to make a motion to open up this hearing. I didn't do that yet. I need a motion to open up the public hearing, which we've already started.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Seconded by Dave. Okay, sorry about that.
Another matter of housekeeping,
Yeah, I need those two, please. Thank you.
Once again, for the record, Tom Daly with Milan and McBroom. So the parcel before you this evening, you walked it, you were on site, but just as it is a public hearing, this is an aerial photograph representing the site. The site is just shy of 1.4 acres. We have the railroad located to the west of the property. We have Ocean Ave on our east, and this is an outdated aerial, obviously. You have a brand new apartment building to the north, and then probably 80% complete probably on our southern flank, really sister buildings. Across the street we have the DCR police station and the road. Today the site is generally paved door to door, and it's used for a commercial parking lot. The site is flat, but there is some slight topography to it. So the elevation of the road is about elevation 6. The front portion of this is also elevation 6, but the lowest point in the site is the rear is about elevation 5 near the railroad tracks, where there's a drainage structure and a manhole located to the rear. There's a small portion that does drain onto Ocean Ave, but primarily all the water flows towards the railroad tracks under existing conditions. There does not appear to be any stormwater management controls. It's just a catch basin that goes off to the back due to the circa of the year it was built. As Tori indicated, one of the reasons we're here before this commission is it's located within the FEMA flood zone. It's in the AE zone, and at AE zone, where this is the parcel, I kind of sketched out the best I could. The elevation is elevation 12, so we're at elevation 6 floodplain elevation is elevation 12. As Mark indicated, the application before you is for a new mixed-use building. This in the gray shade shows the building. This is kind of an outline of that amenity space that Mark indicated. We are locating the main driveway into the parking garage, so you'll won't really see the parking garage. It'll be behind both retail spaces that are located here and here, and then also there's some leasing and some other amenity space, but really you have parking behind here plus another floor above. And really, we had to set our driveway here because our two neighbors kind of set their driveway right at the property corners. We had to get separation so you wouldn't have two cars conflicting as they came out of the two adjoining. We do have a smaller driveway here, but that's really our secondary access.
Quick question,
Yeah.
I'm sorry on that. Loading, are you going to have any need for loading zones for your amenity for the retail space?
We do have on-site parking here that would be used for loading the retail. They also can back and get into here.
In moving, when people move?
Correct.
Okay.
And what we find on the moving thing is it really has to be managed in an urban environment. It's not like college where everybody shows up on one day. They get leased as they go. And then also not everybody has the same 12-month lease. So it tends to be, but in an urban environment or a parking restricted environment, it has to be managed. So there'll actually be leasing staff on there that is able to do that. And we will have a streetscape across the front. We're going through your design review board, but we're trying to mimic the streetscape on the two adjacent. So when you walk down there, it feels like a uniform approach to it, like it's so we're trying to pick up details that they also have. But we did meet with the DCR today, and they're talking potentially creating a design guideline for Ocean Ave that if timing is appropriate, we'll pick up some of those details, so we're part of that. Here we are. So as we come to stormwater. So today, we actually have a decrease in impervious coverage off this site. So about 5,300 square feet of decrease of impervious coverage. One of the important things that we're talking about here is while it's really a change in impervious coverage. Today, it's just a parking lot with a lot of cars. Our impervious coverage is going to move to roof area, which generally tends to be cleaner than parking. Our parking will be underneath, out of the elements, and so in that parking we'll have to go through a water separator before it discharges. But in terms of the overall drainage approach to this project is as I indicated, we actually have a net decrease in impervious, so overall we actually have a decrease in runoff too. But we have to meet the state's requirement for groundwater recharge. So it was very helpful. The engineers from the adjacent property shared some of their plans, and we used that a little bit as a roadmap. So located, we actually only have one catch basin on the entire site. So we have a catch basin that's going to the system. We have a catch basin here, but it's actually a water quality chamber. It's a proprietary product that provides 80% removal. And we picked the type of project. It's called a Vorse entry. And that will clean the water before it even goes into here. Then we have galleys. So these are underground concrete chambers that are open to allow infiltration and groundwater recharge. They're designed per the state standard of the flow. And we've stacked these up along the perimeter here to provide, once we're kind of spreading that flow out so it's not concentrated in one area. And then these are also located above the groundwater elevation. So we were trying to pick a very shallow galley system so we didn't penetrate into the groundwater. And then it comes back through here, and actually the pipe goes back into the building because we were working with the city. There's actually a water main that runs right through the middle of the property. So one of the things we have to do is relocate the water main around the property. The city was asking for a certain separation between us. They don't want to damage our pipe if they ever have to fix that water main. So we'll come back into the property, inside the building, and then we'll tie back there's an existing 8-inch pipe that goes along the rear of the property. This is the same 18-inch pipe that the other two properties tie to. Ultimately, this 18-inch pipe goes about middle of this property, crosses underneath the railroad tracks, and then I believe there's a ditch and a wetlands back through there. So we are providing and all the roof drainage is discharging into this galley system. So we're providing water quality through this. And then the only other catch basin in the road we're doing is really, it's because we did a bump out here to protect the 3 parking spaces. It's really a relocation of existing catch basin that's there today. We're not really sending, except for the sidewalk itself, we're not sending any water to Ocean Ave. We're actually showing a slight decrease of flow to Ocean Ave. So we had to, and as we talked about is in terms of floodplain, the first parking deck, the first parking level is at elevation 6. And as I said, this site is elevation 6. So really, we're not doing much excavation. It's really just set on the grade as it is. Then we have the second level, and all the residential units are clearly above the floodplain in terms of that protection of that natural resource. And we have, and as part of this project, we will provide perimeter controls. Obviously, an important thing of stormwater management is that temporary impact that you may have on water resources down below. And so we'll ring the site with perimeter controls during construction. But the nice thing about this project, once it starts going vertical, your potential for erosion is significantly decreased. And as we talked about, this stormwater system is designed for that frequent storm. That storm we get every week. The goal on water quality is hit the 90%, hit that water quality, and then also even when you get hot water off the roof, you're cooling it down by providing infiltration. But we are showing that we have a decrease in runoff here from the 2 through the 100-year storm event. So we're really looking at quantity and quality as we approach this drainage design. With that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Any questions?
So can you tell me what your plans are for the maintenance of the contact Triton system? How is the water going to get in to be treated by that system? And then how is it going to go out?
Sure.
I did warn you and told you to be ready for these questions.
I didn't see where it was located, like on the plan that I was given.
The bore sentry unit is located it's actually the catch basin, and that's one of the reasons we picked it. It's a unit that you can actually put a grate on top of it. You know, many times you see the catch basin, then it goes through it, and then goes. But this is it's really just to handle this little driveway here. So the bore sentry product is very compact, and the catch basin can go right into it. And we show on detail sheet SD2 is the detail of it, and it'll be sized for the impervious coverage. What happens is it will be embedded into the overall maintenance program of the overall project, and because this is apartments, it'll be owned and there'll be a maintenance company that does it. So we're recommending that twice a year, in the spring and in the fall, that get inspected and cleaned out. And as you may be getting to is, the better you clean this out and more frequent, the less impact it's going to have. You know, it's better to clean this frequent so you don't have to waste, bother with that. So this will be enveloped into the overall maintenance plan. It'll go along with sweeping inside the parking lot, probably looking at that oil water separator, and we'll put together a narrative that actually gets embedded into the maintenance program.
So the roof drains, sorry about that. The roof drains are going to tie into that, or is that just parking lot?
Just parking lot, because you really want to separate those two. Roof water tends to be clean. It doesn't have the oils and everything from parking. So we're tying the roof drainage right into the galley system, where we don't want to dilute it. We want to get the best bang for the buck for the pavement. So that's why that's going through the bore sentry. When it comes to roof drainage, heat tends to be the bigger constituent we're worried about. On a hot summer day, well, how can we cool this down before it finds its way into the water resource? So we want to get that into that system. So we're separating those two to increase the water quality for the pavement. And I believe the interior goes to the sanitary sewer once it goes through an oil water separator. And the only water you're really going to get in there is if snow is on the car or some rainwater once it enters the parking garage.
I would like to have some language in your maintenance plan that the maintenance for that system will remain on the property in perpetuity.
Yes.
And for and that it will survive during transfer of ownership?
We can definitely put it on the plans, and then we can work with town staff and the best way to get that into memorialize that into something that the town is happy with. Yeah, we have no objection. We've done that many times before. Your comment is, great, I'm glad you're sitting here and telling me this, but what about the next guy? So we can embed that into, we've actually put it into something on land records we've actually done before, where anybody who buys the property knows they have maintenance requirements going forward. Because it is a critical element that, it's all about maintenance. So, but we try to pick a unit that's not overly complicated to maintenance. It's a matter of hiring a vac truck and doing it twice a year.
So you'll hire a licensed vac truck company to do that?
It would have
just
to
like
be,
rely on a maintenance guy?
Correct. And even some of these companies, not only do they supply, but they have their own maintenance company. It would have to be done by a specialist company, because you're going to vac it out, and that material has to, I mean, if it has oils in it, it has to go to an off-site location. So it'll be a specialty company that does that. It may actually be the same company that does the oil-water separator. Likely so. And we can even put that maintenance program on our plans. I think we do have it in the stormwater report, but we'll put it on the plans also. Okay.
I agree with the planning committee's, I guess, conversation with you about the sidewalk planning and working stormwater management into the sidewalk, making sure that the sidewalks are pitched correctly for stormwater management, even maybe installing permeable pavers. I know you want to maintain continuity, but that'll be pretty important to us as well.
And I think we had a good meeting with the DCR. I guess they're working on this plan, and it's not, you're right. It's about plantings, it's about amenity spaces there, but the stormwater folks were actually in that meeting also. And if the timing's right, they expect that report or the manual to come out in December. That should be plenty of time for us to have a conversation with them to incorporate these into the plans, because I mean, at the earliest, it would be spring construction. So we have time to work with them, and we're going to continue the dialogue with them as they move forward.
Thank you.
It sounds like you're dealing well with the storm events, but what about king tides and things like that? How does this system work?
Well, and back to you, in our stormwater, but in our stormwater report, we do have the full maintenance program for the Revere Century, so it's in there. In terms of, it's that balance. So we're separating water quality and overall. So for the 100-year storm, we are also mitigating that. But to be honest with you, once you get a hurricane or some massive storm, kind of all bets are off throughout the whole corridor. I mean, you're 6 feet underwater. So what you would do is, after that storm event, that's the time you would have to go suck that out, clean it up, reset the system, because you're always trying to get that half-inch rainstorm is really where we find water. Water quality tends to focus on the small storms because we want to get more. But yeah, we're in a flood zone, so when all bets are off, you have to basically clean everything and reset it. But we would be a small part of the pie, piece of the pie when that big storm event does occur. But that's exactly, we're in your flood zone. You guys, we have to work on I understand we'll have to work closely with your building department for flood protection on anything, but that's also why we got the parking garages, in that first 2 layers. And maybe that's a part of the maintenance thing is, in that maintenance manual is, after you do get a flood event, what do you need to do? Do you need to clean this out? Do you need to do the inspection, pop the manholes, make sure it's back and up and running and there's not clogs in there that would have, so it's probably a reset on that approach. Okay, and we can work that into the maintenance plan.
So none of this stormwater is being entered into the municipal system, correct?
Correct. Municipal, if we're defining municipal as in terms of ocean, correct. It all goes to the rear and this trunk line that goes through the back.
Okay. And none of it's going to go out into the ditch either?
Well, eventually it does get there, but it's 3 properties away. That's where it naturally goes today. So it's...
We should talk to the DPW about how that's
Yep.
going to affect them?
Yeah, our plans are, we want to listen to this presentation tonight, but we got some other factors that we want to talk to the other departments in the city about first,
Yep.
before we make a decision. So we're going to postpone the meeting till next month anyways, but,
And one thing about DPW is they did want to get access to this back pipe.
yeah.
So one thing was we actually moved the building over and opened up the accessway here so they can
get back there.
And that's
Okay.
one of the reasons why we moved this pipe outside so they can get a vehicle. Now, granted, it's over the water main, but we changed the architecture actually because they want to get back here and maintain that thing. But I understand. Well,
Yeah.
but DPW, we did make some accommodations because they did bring those maintenance issues
Yeah,
up.
there'll be a
at-
site plan review too, DPW's.
Yeah, they brought them
site
up
plan
at
review.
staff review. Yeah.
All right, so, this is a public hearing, so are there any other proponents that want to speak for this? Bob, name and address, please, for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Bob O'Brien. I live at 10 Ocean Avenue in Revere, and I am Director of Economic Development for the City of Revere. I stand before you in support of your approval of this application with whatever orders of condition you deem appropriate in your professional judgment. This project, from our perspective, is a worthy and timely one. It represents the next to the last project that will complete the Waterfront Square complex, which dates back to Mayor Ambrosino and actually to some respects before that. So this will finally contribute to the realization of an urban development vision for the city of Revere that has been a long time coming. There's one more project that will follow this, not today, but in the weeks to come, and that will essentially put the completion on that project. Beyond that, I want to particularly note that this development team and this developer, as well as the property owner, Al D'Amico, who is with us here tonight as well, should be commended for having reached out to the city early and often, not just to me and my department, but to Ward Councilor Novoselsky, to the mayor and others, and has been working with us closely over the months to make this a good and responsive project. And I think the presentation here suggests that that is exactly what it will be. To put it in context in terms of where we are in the approval process, the project came before the Site Plan Review Committee in April for the initial presentation, which did involve substantive discussion on a number of elements, as has been suggested, including parking and others. But essentially, the Site Plan Review issued a letter of denial, which allowed them to move forward to the Zoning Board of Appeal with a number of variance petitions, which were approved by the Zoning Board of Appeal at their July meeting just last month. I would note with regard to the parking, Mark addressed that to some extent, and the question was raised. The parking that was approved by the Zoning Board of Appeal was a little bit more than 1.1. As Mark indicated, quite apart from the Vanguard, which is a special case because it's not only had separate charges for parking, which now, by the way, has completely changed. They have, as a result of their own ZBA appeal, now agreed to conform with the practices of all of the others. But beyond that, it was undergoing a substantial renovation. But Ocean 650, for example, immediately next to this project, is running an actual occupancy for parking of about 1.0. The Beach House, similarly, they built their parking to zoning requirements. They have hundreds of spaces that are vacant. They're looking actually for something to do with them. So the 1.1 is actually consistent with experience and also consistent with what ZBA has been approving with our support for most of the waterfront developments, which are, after all, at the front door to the Blue Line. So we think that's quite reasonable. With regard to the parking for the restaurant, I would also note that it was explicitly noted that the parking in the MBTA garage is essentially way down at the times of day and on the weekends when parking for the restaurant would be required. So in addition to the walk-up and so forth, parking will be validated in that garage for this facility, and Zoning Board of Appeal took that into account in essentially excusing them from any parking requirement for the restaurant. In any case, they also appeared before the Revere Beach Design Review Committee, chaired by State Representative Rosalie Vincent. This falls within the purview of the DCR requirement for design review. They have had one meeting with that group. They were very favorably reviewed. There were suggestions made with regard to landscaping and structure, which have since been addressed and resolved. We expect that they will be meeting with the Design Review Board for their final approval sometime later in this month or early in September. So all in all, they are well along in their review and approval process, but they will need to go back to site plan review now that they have these other approvals for detailed review of the individual elements of the plan, including those that are of most concern to you, water, sewer, etc. So your feedback to that group will certainly be timely and will be taken into account in the conclusion of their process. This project does not require City Council approval. Essentially, it was approved as part of the Master Development Agreement some time ago. So with your approval and the final site plan review and the Revere Beach Design Review Committee in the balance of this month, these people should be pretty well ready to go and should be in construction, I would say, in 2020. So we urge you to act favorably and promptly, but deferring your vote until next month, I think, is perfectly appropriate.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak? All right, we'll close out that side of the hearing. Any opponents that want to speak against it? All right, so obviously we're going to put this off till next month. We'll make a decision. I want to talk to site plan review and to State Representative Rosalie Vincent for the Revere Beach design, and we'll go from there, and then we'll come back next month and make our decision.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is 69 Eastern Avenue, construction of a proposed duplex. Charles Callahan, owner, Rick Salvo, Engineering Alliance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, Rick Salvo with Engineering Alliance. Here this evening on behalf of Chuck and Dave Callahan, who are the owners of the subject property that's directly adjacent to number 69 Eastern Avenue. The subject parcel is 40 by 100. It's a vacant lot right now. There's nothing on the property. And it is on the outskirts of the 100-year floodplain. If you take a look at the FEMA map.
Yeah, we got about 3 inches that's in the flood zone or so. Or something.
You can see the FEMA line comes right here, and we're right on the edge of the outer AE zone, which is elevation 11, NAVD 88. And it's also represented by this blue line here that's taken right off of the actual field survey that was performed by Audie and Dwyer for the subject property. So the proposal for this lot, the topography varies from about elevation 11.5 to 10.5. So we're literally this far into the floodplain, 6 inches. So what the proposal is to construct a small curb wall along the property, raise it the grade that's 6 inches, which would remove this property from the flood zone, allow for the construction of the duplex, allow for the duplex to be built such that would have zero interaction with the floodplain based on coastal resiliency and planning for sea level rise. It's been sort of the right thing to do in these floodplains in terms of flood management, is to just try to be able to avoid the connection to the floodplain whatsoever, especially with such a modest fill. Obviously, it's a coastal floodplain. The majority of the reason why there are no performance standards to that coastal floodplain is because the tributary watershed area is the Atlantic Ocean. If it's going to cause a flooding event to elevation 11, it's going to flood to elevation 11, whether there's a small fill there, whether there's a slight depression there. Either way, it's going to flood to that same elevation 11. We are proposing a dry well down here. This is less than 4 units. As a result, it's not subject to the DEP stormwater regs. Nonetheless, we are trying to do our part and manage the rate of runoff from the smaller storm events. There'd be 2 curb cuts along the front to allow for the parking for each duplex units, a walkway. Utility connections will be made all completely outside of the floodplain to their respective mains. We've been to site plan review already. Obviously, that's how we got referred here. So our next step would be to get an order of conditions. Once the lot is constructed, we would then file a letter of map revision, LOMR-F, which is when you add fill, and get this property removed from the floodplain. So I guess with that, I'd turn it back to any questions or comments that you have.
I actually just, we got to do a motion, to open up the public hearing, which I forgot again, so.
I'll make the motion. Second.
Toby makes the motion, Heather approves it, okay, seconds it.
I don't have to
Any
repeat all
questions
that,
from the
do I?
commissioners? It's late in the day, I've been up since 6 o'clock. Any questions from the commissioners? Do I have a motion to approve motion to approve?
I'll make the motion again.
Toby makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by D.B. Tough. All right, so as you know, there's no DEP file number or anything yet, so.
So as soon as we get that, I'll get it
Yeah, when we
over
get
to you.
that, I'll give you everything you need.
Appreciate it,
All right,
thank
you want me, I'll mail it to you, I'll call you when it's ready. You
Yeah,
can
it's
pick it
done,
up
we'll
or
come pick it
whatever.
up.
All right, perfect.
Perfect,
Sounds
thank you
good.
so much.
Thank you, no problem, guys. Thank you. Do I have a motion to close out the public hearing?
Motion to
Make a
close?
Motion to close. David, that was you. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, buddy. All right, next we got is 48 and 50 Sherman Street. You guys want to come up? I know we had a little conversation before.
Nice to see
Hi,
you.
everyone.
How are you? What is your name for the record, please?
Yivu.
The Mia's campaign.
So we know what the problem is, and I know the whole street has a problem, and I don't want to add to it, and I don't want to hurt anybody. So, but with you guys putting in that asphalt, it's making other properties flood. So we got to come up with a solution. The solution, there's 2 solutions. One, rip up the asphalt and put something down that the water flows through, which is a lot of money. We don't want to do that. The other is to put some sort of a drains on the end of the driveway and the edges of the property so it doesn't flow to other people's properties and it doesn't flood them. I don't want it done tomorrow, but I want it done in a timely manner. 30 days, maybe, you can figure out something, let me know what we're going to do. And let's get it taken care of. Once it's done, then I'll come out and look at it. If it's okay to me and we're not flooding, and we have one of the neighbors here, it's not flooding her property and she's happy and everyone's happy, then we move on and life goes on.
We're thinking that if is it okay to put also the asphalt to the next door? Because look like her base right way is kind of lower than us. That's why the water flow through into her house.
Yeah.
So, besides your suggestions, we wonder is it okay if we pay also, make it even so that the water not flow into her house? Is
Why
it another
don't we do this to
solution?
make it easier for everybody? But it's kind of hard to explain it here and talk about it. Why don't we plan a time where we can all come out there and meet with the neighbors and everything, and let's come up with a solution. You know what I mean? If you guys want to meet out there as well. The normal standard for the city of Revere is the ordinance is to not use regular asphalt. You need to use something that's pervious that the water flows through. So I don't want to add more asphalt or it's just going to flow to the next property.
Okay.
But let's come up with a solution, and I don't mind meeting there sometime to discuss it, and let's figure it out, and let's make everybody happy. You know what I mean?
So you mean us and you and
us.
another neighbor?
I'll come out there if any of the commissioners want to come, and if any of the neighbors want to be there, we can sit and figure it out.
Yeah, I guess
If we can
that's
figure out
better.
something you guys can do to keep the neighbor to your right happy and the neighbor to your left happy in the street, then I'm okay with that. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to fine anybody, I don't want to hurt anybody, I just want to make sure everyone does, and the street in general has a problem with flooding, the
Right,
whole
yeah,
street.
it's already-
That's a whole city issue that we got to take care of.
Yeah.
But by you guys paving that, it just added a little bit to the problem, and I don't want to do that anymore. So
Okay.
maybe we can communicate the next few days, me and you, and we can plan a day to come out there and meet with everybody. Michelle, I don't know how you are as well, if you're okay with that, you know what I mean? So let's, maybe you can call me tomorrow. You have my card, and let's plan a day when can you guys, do you guys live there, or you guys live in Malden, right? You guys don't live there?
Yeah, just 5 minutes from there, so
All right.
anytime.
Can you meet Saturday morning?
Sure, around what time?
9 o'clock, Saturday morning, 8:30, 9 o'clock Saturday morning?
Yep.
Whatever's good for you. I don't want to, so
So
we'll
you
say,
work Saturday and Sunday too?
I work every day. I never stop work.
So,
So let's say 8:30 Saturday morning. Let's
Okay.
come out there and meet. I don't want you to rip up this asphalt. It's going to be a lot of money, but I want to
Right.
keep everybody happy in the neighborhood. So let's meet Saturday morning at 8:30.
here or what?
No, on the property.
On the property? Okay,
We'll meet in front of your house Saturday morning at 8:30.
okay.
All right? And then
This
we'll just-
Saturday, right?
Yeah, this Saturday, which is what's today, so it'll be the 10th.
10.
So it'll be the 10th. Saturday morning at 8:30, let's meet. I'll make sure all the neighbors are notified let's come up with a solution
Okay,
and figure
sure.
this out. All
Okay.
right?
Yep, thank you.
We'll see you Saturday morning.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, with that said, we have a motion to close, to adjourn. Motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Heather makes a motion. We have a second?
I'll second.
And seconded by Dave. Okay. All right, we are all done. Thank you.